Hey, welcome back to Cellarcast, episode 43. This one's probably going to come out a little late because I spent too long on the last Die Hard video. It kind of ballooned. There was a lot of ground I had to cover in the final part. And it ended up taking a while, and it didn't help that my sleep cycle was all funky. And I didn't have the most mental energy this week. But hey, it's out. A little late, but it's out. People are enjoying the reception to it. People seem to be enjoying it, and I'm very pleased with the reception to it. I'm very glad to be done. I'm glad that I spent so much time on something that people liked. And not not something that everyone hated. Somebody gonna sneeze? I can't tell. I need to vacuum in here. It's too dusty. Yeah, so I kind of woke up sort of late today because I'm just straight up I don't want to do any work for the next couple days. I got really wound up, from multiple, full days, 7 to 10 hours of working, so I'm ready to, not do anything for a few days. Except for this, I guess, but this is easy. Was there something else? Oh, yeah, I'm excited to move on to new stuff. I like what I did with Game Fan and Die Hard, but, I'm ready to move on to doing different stuff. I feel like I get kind of bored, or I don't like staying on the same thing for too long. Yeah, so do want to do some more different series, like multi-part things in the future, and I have ideas for them, but not anytime soon. I'm gonna do a bunch of standalone videos. Pardon me. I'll book up a bunch of standalone videos for the next while, and I think probably around the holidays I'll put together a compilation of I'll just combine all the Die Hard parts together to one big feature film. It's probably around 3 hours, and I'll also probably use that opportunity to correct some things, still some editing mistakes, and maybe a couple minor scripting things. Changes to the first parts that I'm not misgendering Molly Patterson. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm glad. I'm tired. I don't have anything to talk about because I've spent the last few days doing nothing but staring at a screen editing. Let's head on to the comment review. First comment comes from Lozy, and so last time we talked about the fighting game pricing models, and he says, I think the fighting games need a midpoint, maybe games at $30 and seasons at $15, and when a new season arrives, the last one costs $5. Okay, so it's a half price, and then seasons are $15, and the previous season just gets discounted to $5 when the next one. That makes sense, right? That makes sense to me. So that would be let's say you had 3 seasons of a game, or four seasons. A lot of games last 4 or 5 years. That would be what? $30 plus 5, 10, 15. So $45 plus, yeah, about 60, maybe a little over 60. And then before there's a complete edition. It's definitely an easier pill to swallow. He says, about gacha games, I am playing, quote-unquote, Dead or Alive. I was reading this, and it's XVV, and I was reading that as Roman numerals. I'm pretty sure it's at the Venus Vacation. Hang on. Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball? Is it volleyball or Venus Vacation? I know I've heard of Venus. I don't know what Venus Vacation is. Extreme Venus Vacation. I was right. Only on PC. What is this? Is that an ass? No, those are boobs. Okay. I just looked at like images real quick. Yeah. Oh, hey. Speaking of, because that's the only reason I've heard of this game is because there was a collab with Ozerlane back when I played it. It's a game that is played alone. You dedicate yourself to collecting the waifus, level up the suits, yada yada. Very little interaction from you except if you want to do photo sessions. It's an ideal game for when you browse the internet or want to listen to music, not take it too seriously. I always thought it was like a gacha game. Hey, speaking of, we're going to talk about a little one of those types of games on this episode. Ooh, slamming doors. Darkest Dungeon, I loved it, but I tried it when it was still very early. Tried it illegally, so with each patch you had to download a new version. Either when it's finished, I'll buy it legally one day. The game still didn't have that mode that makes grinding less. I don't know. There's a bunch of customization options, which is nice. For like different mechanics and stuff that you can just turn on or off. Yeah, someday I have to buy it on sale with all the expansions. Yeah, definitely worth it. It's totally a game that if you gel with it, you could put a ton of time into it. It's quite enjoyable. I would recommend it. I skipped part on the Sonic movie because you started giving some spoilers unintentionally. Well, we all know, the Sonic movie is a very... It's the must-see event of the year. Maybe the last 5 or even 500 years. So it's not, spoiling it would be it would be a faux pas. It was kind of like spoiling Infinity War. I was very impressed with how people did not spoil. Like, there was like this weird code when that movie came out, and Endgame, to just not spoil it, not talk about it, because it was so huge. People would be so upset. Maybe the lady was Cat from the future and just wanted to interact with you without affecting the future too much. Maybe Sonic will come at some point. Cat, you got a lot whiter over the years. It's like a white lady. Apparently, the forest scene in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer is Endor because they also found a footprint of those two-legged robots. I saw that. I don't know if I believe that. I see what people are pointing to. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's... It's like blurry. It could just be some rocks. It could just be some rocks that are like, they look weird. It could be something totally different. Also, it's supposed... I actually just read an interview with Nomura about the game, and it is supposed to take place in Shibuya, like in Japan, in the real world. Well, I don't know if it's like the real world or like a fictional version of the real world, if that makes sense. It takes place in Shibuya. So, like, is that all shot also in Shibuya? I think it would be... Maybe it would be kind of weird if it wasn't. I don't know. Anyway, would you play Kingdom Hearts 4 if worlds like Star Wars, The Simpsons, and Marvel are introduced? The idea of Sora interacting with Homer Simpson is... I don't know if it's like... Like, what, would you go to Simpsons World and Sora's, like, yellow? That'd be kind of funny, actually. What the fuck am I thinking? Wait, no, yellow's for white people, so Sora would have to be... Wait, are Asian people also yellow? Wait, is that... No, wait, you can't say that. In The Simpsons are Asian people also yellow? I've never seen a full episode of The Simpsons. I'm that zoomer. Hang on. Simpsons, Asian people. Yeah. Okay, they are. Was Sora Asian? His name is a Japanese word. Is he like... I don't know, is he a Kingdom Heartsian? How would you... I don't know, it doesn't matter. Well, would I play it? The idea of like a Keyblade lightsaber is kind of dope. I don't know. I'm not like the The thing is, I'm not the biggest fan of any of these three things. Like, I quite enjoy Star Wars, the original trilogy at least, and some of the games and all that. I quite enjoy Star Wars. I've never seen The Simpsons. The only context I have for The Simpsons is clips that millennial YouTubers use. And Marvel, it would probably be like MCU stuff. I'm more of a fan of like late Silver Age to Bronze Age Marvel. It's like 70s and 80s kind of stuff, and it has a very different like feel from, I feel like, the Marvel that would be in a Kingdom Hearts game. I remember when Disney bought Star Wars, someone was like, "Hey, does that technically make like Princess Leia a Disney princess?" And I was like, "I guess it does." And then I remember when Kingdom Hearts 3 was announced, and I was like, it would be kind of cool to see like a Star Wars Kingdom Hearts world. I feel like it would just be on like the Death Star or something. For some reason, that's what I'm picturing, because that's like the easiest way to like do like a combat zone, I feel like. I'm just trying to imagine. They've never. So the thing with Kingdom Hearts, I don't remember. There was actually an interview. Hang on, Kingdom Hearts, Star Wars. I feel like this was, Kingdom Hearts. No, this is all about 4. Kingdom Hearts 3. There was like an interview where Nomura said something about, he said something. Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't have Marvel or Star Wars worlds for one major reason. Hang on. This is from Screen Rant. Blah blah blah. So in order to change those properties, who said this? This is Nomura. Okay. In order to change those properties into a game, contracts must be made with each company separately, and there are cases where other game companies already have contracts. So although the Disney Group has indeed added those properties, incorporating them into Kingdom Hearts isn't so simple. Oh, okay. Okay, so it's actually just a licensing thing. I would have thought, my assumption would have been just adapting like real actors into Kingdom Hearts, like as CG models. Like that was my assumption, that was like I thought it was like a creative thing, that it was like, oh, it's getting the likenesses. I'm thinking of only like the movies. I guess they could technically just adapt the comics. Pardon me. Actually, no. Well, for Marvel, at least, you could adapt the comics. But with Star Wars, it's like, well, those are real human beings. I just like, that was my assumption, that it was like too weird for like Nomura to like adapt real people into like a game, like with Kingdom Hearts is kind of like styling. That might be different. I don't know. Stuff changes. This interview is from like 2019, but stuff changes. I know that like Square Enix does have the rights to the Marvel thing. EA has Star Wars though. It's a big fucking mess. Licensing sucks. But hey, you asked a hypothetical. So would I play it if? So let's forget about probability. Would I play it if there were those things? Probably not. At least like it wouldn't be like a selling point, I guess. It wouldn't be like, well, now I have to buy it. Just cause I don't know, unless it was super cool. I keep thinking about like a Keyblade lightsaber, and it hits this point, this area of like my child brain where I'm like, oh, oh, ooh, that sounds cool. Yeah, it wouldn't be a selling point. If I played Kingdom Hearts 4 for any reason, it would just probably be curiosity and expendable income. The only other Kingdom Hearts game I've played, I think I mentioned it, was Birth by Sleep, which I enjoyed enough. I'm not a huge Disney fan. I'm fairly neutral. Look, hey, okay. Look, if Kingdom Hearts 4 has a Treasure Planet level, yeah, I'm playing that. That. Oh, every time I think of Treasure Planet, I get so upset. It's the best Disney movie. It's the best Disney movie, and nobody fucking watched it. It's the best Disney movie. Let me tell you a story about Treasure Planet. So when I was like a little kid, my grandparents, all of my family that's not in Europe lives in California, except for us. We live in Illinois, and we would visit every summer. We would come over and we would visit for like a week or two. And one of those summers, my grandma took me to the library. I was maybe 9 or 10, maybe younger even. And I just randomly, because I liked sci-fi stuff. Let's see. I remember going to that library. I picked out. Well, let me finish this story first. I went to the library. And I just randomly picked out Treasure Planet. I was like, cool. What is this? And then I went home, and in the span of like 3 days, I must have watched it like 15 times. I watched that movie so goddamn much. It's so good. I haven't seen it since. So maybe I just have like a nostalgia bias. But I have a strong feeling that it holds up. And it basically got, if you've never heard of Treasure Planet, it's because it got snuffed, basically, by Disney. Those fuckers. I forget the exact story of what went down, but I think what happened was that it was like directed / written, or basically like the project was the idea of these two guys who like I think like led the whole Disney Renaissance thing with like the Little Mermaid and all that, and or they were like really important, and they came to Disney and they were like, hey, we want to do this movie. It's like Treasure Island, like the classic Treasure Island, but it's like a sci-fi version of Treasure Island. It's called Treasure Planet. Disney was like, okay, maybe if you do some one other thing for us. And they were like, okay. And then they were like, all right, we did that. It's a big success. Can we make the Treasure Planet now? And they were like, oh, maybe like one more. And then they just kind of kept up. And I think they just didn't like them for some fucking reason. But yeah, there's like cool sequences in that movie that like so basically like it cost like a lot of money to make, I think, and for some reason they didn't like them, and the movie itself like cost money to make because it used some like new techniques or something. Like, you know that scene in Tarzan where he's like sliding down the like the tree branches and all that, where that's like, I think the tree branches are parts of the shot are CG, but Tarzan is like 2D and it was like composited together. That was like I forget which one of those came out first. I think Tarzan came out first, but that was like a new technology, and Treasure Planet used that, but like much more extensively, and it used a lot more CG, and it cost a lot of money. And so I think they actually just like totally gimped it in the marketing by like they didn't market it for one, and then two, the marketing that the movie did get was just like completely spoiled the entire film. Like, do not watch the trailer for this movie, because there's like a big, like very emotional twist, and it just spoils it. Like, it just says it in the trailer. It's like, why? It's like a really good part of the movie. Anyway, go watch Treasure Planet. That movie rocks. It's my favorite Disney movie. And it's the only one that I really care about. So that I think that's a good metaphor for my relationship with the company. I remember going to that same library and picking up, when I was like 7, I remember picking up Yu-Gi-Oh! The first season on DVD. And I was like there was a lot of things that I just didn't understand. So like I didn't understand, at that time, because I was a little child. So I remember like taking that home, and I didn't realize that it was like an entire season of a TV show. I thought it was just like a really long movie. And I watched practically the entirety of the first season in one day. And like we had like guests coming over. My grandma was like, "You have to stop watching Yu-Gi-Oh! You've been in here all day." I just watched it like in there was like a separate like room with a like a family room or something with a TV, and I just sat in there all day and watched Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I just didn't understand. I was like, wow, time really flew by. It's like a really long movie. And then years later, I was at scout camp in Wisconsin, and I was talking to some of my friends there who were into Yu-Gi-Oh about like the anime. I was like, oh yeah, I watched like the first movie, and he was like, oh, such and such, and I was like, no, it was like they were on an island. He was like, what? I'm like, yeah, the first movie. It's like they're on like an island and they duel the guy and there's Weevil. That's the only part I remember is fucking Weevil. And he goes like, that's the first season of the anime. I was like, what? What? It was the first season? He's like, yeah, it's just the first season. It's like the dual island like tournament thing. And I was like, oh. I thought it was just a really long movie. Good times. Yeah. What else did I have on the dickety docket? Oh, I want to talk about. This is a fascinating topic to me. So, this is a fighting game topic, but I think it's interesting even if you're not into the genre. So, because it's a good case study. It's really interesting. So, AT&T has this tournament series. For this esports tournament series that they were sponsoring, called like, pardon me, like the AT&T Annihil. Oh jeez, I can't stop burping. The AT&T Annihilator series or something like that. The Annihilator Cup. So it was like every week. It was like every week there was a different game, and let's see. So it was like the idea of it was that it pulled a bunch of big streamers together, and they had them compete across multiple games. It was like 5 different games, and each week was a different game. And week 3, so the game lineup was, I believe, I remember like what was that? AT&T Annihilator Cup. The game lineup, I remember like 4 of them. What's the last one? What is it? It was like Halo Infinite, Apex Legends, Dead by Daylight, I think Valorant, and then Street Fighter V. Oh no, it was CSGO, not Valorant. I just saw, okay. And then Street Fighter V. Now, actually, 2 of these things are not like the other. Yeah, Dead by Daylight was an interesting choice. But also Street Fighter V. So SF5 was smack dab in the middle. It just happened. It was just the last one. That just happened. Smack dab in the middle of the schedule. And so you'll notice that 3 of these games are shooty games. One of these games is like a fantasy for strange women, and the last one is a fighting game. Let's just say there was a potpourri of experiences with the Street Fighter V tournament. I think someone said on Twitter that it was basically a Rorschach, where it was like a Rorschach, the ink blot test, right? Where you can basically take any clip, whatever argument you have about fighting games as a genre, you can take a clip from this tournament, from like one of the individual streamers, like practicing or something like that, or in the tournament or whatever, and use it to support your argument. there was a range of different experiences, and I guess I should just start talking about the ones that I found interesting. So, one of the first, literally the first clip I saw of it was a guy called Noka. It's like Noka or Coca or something like that. I think it's Noka. And it's just him really, really salty. Like, really, like, seething mad. And it's like him, what is he saying? He's saying something like, he's complaining about, so for reference, he's an Apex Legends, I think, like, pro. He's a streamer, and he's like a pro, like, super high level Apex player. And I think he's probably also played like other shooters and stuff, right? So now he's going over to Street Fighter V, and he is fucking lost. He does not know what to do. He has no idea what's going on. He barely has an understanding of the game, and he's getting his shit kicked in by literally bottom rank players. And to be fair, some of them were definitely Smurfs. Smurfing is not very common in fighting games, because like, I don't know, it's just less common. I don't know. It's like you're more inclined to just play with people who are like, I feel like the ranking in fighting games is more just so like, I feel like in other games like League, where Smurfing is way more common, well, one, it happens because people get banned. Two, it happens because for a lot of people, ranking is just like a status symbol. Whereas I want to say that in like fighting games, it's more just so that like you want to get better, so that you can play people who are, you want to have a higher quality of matches. That might be that might be a little too generous, but I feel like that's more of the case. Like, people are just less inclined to play at low levels unless they're just very petty and they like stomping new players. Most people, if you're actually good at the game, you just kind of want to like play other good players because that's more enjoyable. But yeah, there were definitely some Smurfs. You could just tell from like movement and stuff like that, and combos and punishes. But like, it was funny in a way, because I was so fascinated by these. I watched a couple like VODs, not entirely, but like not entire streams, but I watched a couple, like, I want to say I watched at least 5 hours of a couple different streamers. Not each, but like combined. And it was really funny in sort of like a mean way to see him, like Noka, this fella, like lose to like the most bronze Ken you've ever seen. Like the most just fucking sure you can throw fireballs, fucking just do whatever, like the most bronze, like crazy, has no brain shit ever. And I'm in no position because I'm bronze in SF5. And then for him to lose to that and be like, dude, this guy's like insane. Is this guy smurfing? And he's just like his really what the problem. I don't know if it's a problem. It is a bit of a problem. Is that there's a matter of perspective here. So I think I tweeted this. Because I didn't have anyone to like say it to, but I was just thinking about it. Basically, every competitive genre that's, worth its salt has a hurdle. There's a hurdle that you need to clear. And like, before you clear it, there's a hurdle that takes X amount of hours. The amount of time, it depends on the game, it depends on the player, it depends on, their background, certain things that, they're maybe just more inclined to. Like, some people are just more naturally good at certain things. that like doesn't make them instantly good, but it kind of speeds up their progress in one area. Um, Once before you clear this, nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're just shitting the bed constantly, and you don't know what the fuck's going on. And then somehow, for some reason, after you clear the hurdle, everything just kind of clicks. Not everything, but enough things click to where you go from like garbage to, oh, I'm alright. I'm actually kind of okay. And it's weird. There's like not too much of an in-between. At least this is my experience. There's like a level of at least understanding of the game. So like for instance, before I get into my example, let me talk about this. So like most of the people in this tournament had little to no fighting game experience. Double Lift, the only exception was like Double Lift, who is actually a quite good Street Fighter 4 player, and I think he ended up winning. There was one other guy who dabbled in fighting games. Was it Shroud? I'm not sure. And then I think his name is Jake and Bake, who he did he pulled a smart move. He actually like for every game that he wasn't familiar with, and because he's done these kinds of like multi-game tournaments before, he'll just like hire coaches who are like high-level like tournament players. He'll just hire pros to like coach him for like, okay, here's how you win a beginner tournament in a week. Other than that, most of these people, in terms of like competitive genres, have little to no like useful fighting game experience. Like maybe they played a little bit, but they never really got into it. For the most part, they've played stuff like League of Legends. They played various shooters. Maybe something like Hearthstone. Something else I'm forgetting. I don't know. Fortnite. Oh, it's a shooter. But right, so like they are at like level 0. They're not even close to clearing the hurdle yet. And when you go into a new genre, you have to understand that you're just going to suck for a little bit. You're just going to suck for a while, right? And what I think, like, this Noka guy, who was getting really frustrated, like, he was seethingly mad. And part of that is that he's, like, extremely competitive, which he admitted to. Like, someone asked in his chat, like, why are you getting upset over a game that you don't even play? And he's like, well, you've obviously never been competitive. Like, he hates losing. And he doesn't understand why he's losing. So this is, like, a very confusing, frustrating experience for him. And what I think he didn't understand is, I'm assuming he's probably the bulk of his, like, competitive gaming experience is in shooters. It's just an assumption. The bulk of it is in shooters. And in shooters, you have a lot of transferable skills. Well, in fighting games, you have a lot of transferable skills too, but that's after you learn, like, your first one. So, if you haven't played several competitive genres, like multiples, like 2 or 3 at least, right? And, like, actually tried to, like, get into them and understand the games and multiple games in them, you don't have, like, the perspective to understand the hurdle, if that makes sense. Like, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. Once you clear the hurdle, there is no going back. Like, I've put in enough time across enough fighting games that I've cleared the hurdle for fighting games. So I can go into any fighting game and besides like a little awkwardness at the start of just getting used to certain things like movement and control and all that and my character and stuff, it's so much easier for me to just pick one up because the skills are transferable and I already have an understanding of like the basics of the genre. I like cannot, unless it was just like so I don't even know how different it would have to be for me to be at that like pre-hurdle phase, pre-clearing the hurdle phase. Count how many times I say hurdle in this podcast. I don't know how different it would have to be for me to go back to that state. It's like, it's so difficult to put yourself in the shoes of a beginner once you're already at like an intermediate level in anything. Like there's just, I mean, you run into this with a lot of stuff. I used to do, there's like a website called High Native, and what it was is basically like a question and answer forum for people learning languages. And I used to go on there, and it's just like a hobby. Every night I would help people, like give them tips for English. And it was really interesting to read the questions that questions people had, because as someone who's spoken English my entire life, who's native in it, and who I think at least I have a pretty strong grasp of the language, a pretty strong grasp. I was like top 6 to top 4% of English students in the country when I was in like high school, so I think I'm like pretty good at it. That sounds so like pretentious for me to say that, like, I was pretty good at it. I'm just trying to build a credibility here. And like people would ask questions about the language, and I'm like, I've never thought of that. They would just be like really simple things, like, why do you say this in English? Like, why do you say it like this and not like this? And I would just look at their question and be like, why do we say it like that? And I had to really like break down how the language works, and like just basic kind of tendencies of the language. And like that is something that, as someone who was just born speaking it, I would have never even thought about it like that. But someone who's learning it for the first time, they're just going to run into problems that like are totally lost on people who like are fluent or native in the language. I feel like this is also like transferable to, or this idea is applicable to a lot of other skills, right? Unless you like regularly work with like people who are new in them. So like, for me, it's like, it's so, I could definitely like identify a lot of issues that this Noka guy was having, right? Like, and it's a lot of like, I guess, beginner traps. Like he's focusing too much on combos and not enough on just like anti-airing and pokes. It's like, all you need is like, what's my fastest button so I know what to mash when they're close up? What is my anti-air? And what's my poke? And can I do my poke into like a special move? That's all you need to know to get started, really. Other than that, it's like really simple to just break down a basic game plan of like, okay, get a hit, knock down, run up, and then just do either a low or a throw. And it's like, these are just like concepts that are really basic and simple, but if you don't know how the system mechanics work, like for instance, there was this like super textbook beginner problem that he was running into, where he played this other Ken who was just spamming fireballs. He spammed fireballs from full screen, or from like half screen, and Noka was just blocking because he's like, oh, I block, but he didn't know about like crouch blocking, and he didn't know how to deal with projectiles. So like he was blocking and then just walking backwards because all he was doing was holding back and not crouch blocking. And so he just kept walking back until he was literally full screen, and he couldn't do anything because he wasn't doing anything to stop this Ken from throwing fireballs. He wasn't doing like neutral jumps to throw off timing. He wasn't just blocking and then like walking forward, block, walk forward, block, walk forward, block, walk forward, poke, He wasn't doing these things, and he was just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's just like this problem that he doesn't even understand like how to begin to approach it. And for him, that was super frustrating. he focused like way too much on combos, where he was like, it was also very SF5 also, you know, there's like this rant he's talking about, like, everything has to be frame perfect, which is really funny to hear. Which is really funny to hear, because SF5 was the game that everyone shit on because the combos were too easy, because the buffer is too wide, the buffer's so wide, and the tightest links are like 3 frames. There's like really difficult shit to do, but it's like so high level and like just flashy basically that like it's so unnecessary at a beginner level and even an intermediate level that like all you need is like a 3-hit combo if you want to, you know? Like he was playing Luke, it's like, dude, just do like, Luke has like so many fucking special cancelable moves. Just do that into like your big punch move. So that was like his experience, where he didn't, I don't think he's, I would put money on him not having played enough games to have the perspective to know that he was just gonna suck because he didn't understand anything. He wasn't crouch blocking at all. Like one of the, like when you learn about defense and like how blocking works in fighting games, like he didn't understand why he was getting hit, which was like an experience I remember having when I had when I played Schoolgirls, like which was like the first game that I really tried to learn. I was like, why the fuck am I getting hit? Like it's so, I don't understand what's going on. And then I played the tutorial on blocking, and they were like, oh, you have to block lows crouching, and you have to block highs standing. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, I never knew what the fuck. And I was like, oh, you just crouch block. Like once you learn it, it's like, oh, you just crouch block by default until they either throw out an overhead, which are usually very reactable, or they jump, and you can either anti-air or just block the jump in. So it was like, becomes very simple once you understand it, but he just didn't understand how the system works because he's only been playing the game for like a few days. Now, on the exact opposite side of the spectrum is Emiru. So Emiru is another, I don't know what she streams, probably like Valorant or something. She's like an Asian American woman. So I don't know like what strategy she was maybe trying before, but or if she was even playing the game, like she's practicing before the before the tournament. Basically, so our main man Brian F, he tweeted this out like, hey, I don't know which one of those big streamers in the AT&T tournament needs to see this, but pick E Honda and mash Light Punch. And like no explanation of why. Just telling them just do that. So Emiru gets in, she goes online, she picks E Honda because she saw that tweet, and I think people were like adding her in it or something like that. She goes online, she picks E Honda. All she does is mash Light Punch. So for reference, for those who don't know, E Honda's the sumo guy in Street Fighter, and he has the 100-hand slap, which is a special move that you do where he does a bunch of like open palm slaps, just like forward. He just like a big rush of them, like JoJo style. And you do it by just mashing one of the punch buttons. And I think Light Punch is the most like, it's like the safest version of the move or something like that. Safest or fastest, it's one of those. So Honda's a very difficult character for new players to deal with. He's fucking difficult for me to deal with. I don't know, it's because I play Nash. Basically just like his main strength are just that he has like a lot of moves that are like plus on block and that are difficult to punish. His main weakness is like zoning. He doesn't have a lot of defensive options, but he's got a lot of plus frames and people who don't know how to exploit. He's like the Teemo of Street Fighter V. Teemo's this character who's like in League, who it's like if you don't know how to deal with him, he's like a nightmare, But once you know how to deal with him, it's like, oh wait, this character actually kind of sucks, and that's why you never see him in tournament, or it's why you never see him in like high level like pro play. E Honda's kind of like that, because like, yeah, obviously like the character's not terrible by any means, but he has like exploitable weaknesses. But like new players don't know that. They don't know how to like zone, or like, I don't know, like jump over the headbutt and then punish it, or anything like that, or just do anything that like Honda's weak against. And so like you can just mash 100 hands, and nobody knows what the fuck to do besides block, and then they try to challenge and they just get counter hit. So Emiru, she just picks up E Honda, and without going into training mode at all, as far as I'm aware, she goes into her first match, and literally all she does is spam 100 hands. All she does is spam light 100 hand slap. And they can't do anything about it. The opponent literally can't do anything about it. And like she, who has like almost like a very, very basic, I think she played like the tutorial and maybe a bit of like training or something like that, and maybe like some versus CPU, very basic understanding, like day 2, day 3 understanding of the game. She is just like pulled out this unbeatable strategy with just 100 hands. And dude, she is choking laughing. Like she can't breathe. She is laughing so hard because she's like, they just fucking can't do anything about it. It was seeing like their reactions. It was literally the meme of like the raging like Wojak. He's like, everything needs to be framed perfect, dude. What the fuck? Oh my god. And then on her Emiru, it's just haha, Honda go Brrr. And I don't think she like placed very far, because again, she was playing. Eventually, I think she did end up running into people who did know how to deal with it. So obviously, like the strategy just fell apart. But she had a fucking grand old time just doing some basic like scrub killing strategies. She had like the smartest outlook. I think she's done one of these before. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but she basically said like, okay, for all the games that I don't know, I'm not gonna try to do anything technical. I'm not gonna try to like learn the game, because when you actually try to learn the game, it takes like longer for you to start winning, because like you have to like clear this. Brian F actually made a video reviewing a lot of the stuff from this tournament, and he made this good point about how like when you actually try to learn a game, you go through this like longer period of just like, if you're just doing like mindless, brainless shit, you'll probably win more than someone who's trying to like actually think about what they're doing. But the person who's trying to think about what they're doing, there's going to be like a while where they're not making the right decisions, and they're failing, and they're just struggling, they're adjusting, they're having these growing pains of just learning a new skill. But eventually they will radically improve. But they have to go through this like dip period where they're having a lot of trouble trying to play the game intelligently, so to speak, quote unquote. So she was like, I'm not even going to try that, because I have a week to learn this game. So literally all I'm going to do, I'm just going to find the cheap shit in every game. I'm literally just going to try to find like the cheap scrub killing strats, and I'm going to fucking just exploit the hell out of them. And like it's exactly what you do if you've got a week to learn a game. That's what I would do. Just find the cheap shit that people who are newer don't know how to deal with. And you will... I don't know how far she got, but like she had success, and she had a good time. I'm like, hey, that's all that matters. I think the prize pool was like $350,000, which is like a drop in the bucket for most of these people. So I think it was more just like, oh, here's a fun like thing. Here's a fun stream thing. Yeah, it was a really interesting tournament, because you really got the full spectrum of of reactions. You had people like Noka who were just like bashing their head into the wall, not understanding the game, getting frustrated, didn't have the perspective to have a cool head and just like stick with it. You had people like Emiru who were just like, Honda go Brrr, fuck it. And then you had people who like Jake and Bake who tried to actually get coaching. And then you had people like Doublelift who I think he ended up winning the tournament, who just knew how to play the game. I think he I saw somewhere in a comment that Doublelift used to play Street Fighter 4 actually, while waiting in queue for League. There's this interesting phenomenon with League of Legends where once you get to the top ranks, it's kind of like the opposite problem of fighting games, where the bottom ranks in fighting games are there's no one there, and the top ranks is where everyone is. That sounds a little discouraging, but League has the opposite problem where 90% of the player base is in the bottom 50. It's their own bronze or some shit, and it goes as you go up, it's like a pyramid where it just gets smaller and smaller, where high level pro players and around pro level, there's very few people, and League is a game that needs 10 people to start, so you can be in queue for a while if you're a pro player like Doublelift, who's top ranked. You can be in queue for a while. So a lot of streamers, League streamers, will just have other games that they'll have up playing. A lot of them play just some single player thing like Dark Souls that they'll have in the background. I remember I'm a Cutie Pie used to have when World of Warcraft Classic first came out. I remember watching his stream, and he would just tab back to that and just do some quests while he was waiting in queue. So apparently, he used to play Street Fighter 4 to a pretty decent level. I don't know how highly he was ranked, or if he won any tournaments or anything like that, but he definitely knew the game. And apparently also when Akuma came out in Street Fighter 5, I think in season 2, it's around 2017, he was queuing up. He was playing SF5 in between League games, which is really funny that he could queue for a different game and get a match faster than League. I guess so. So he was playing Akuma in the tournament. I think he just likes Akuma. That is a very Doublelift character. I think he likes glass cannons. That's why he plays ADC. So that makes a lot of sense for Akuma. What else? Yeah, so he had a legit he knew how to play neutral, he knew how to do he knew how to punish, he knew combos, he knew how to anti-air. He was an actual intermediate to maybe higher level player at the game. And he just stomped people. He just wrecked. He was pretty clean on that Akuma. That Akumer. I have to use the bathroom real quick. I'm back. Yeah. Do I have anything else to really talk about with this tournament? I don't know. It was fascinating. It's always interesting to see. I try to learn new stuff and new games. I like to branch out because, one, I think it gives you a good perspective. And I think it's good to keep some kind of an idea of what it's like to be a beginner in something. Excuse me. Because I like that feeling. I like learning stuff, and I like learning new things. And for me, the experience of being a beginner at a game is kind of enjoyable. I like learning about it. It doesn't freak me out. I'm not I need to win now. I'm not going to do it if I can't win, or something like that. It's it doesn't matter. I kind of just look at stuff for what ideas it can give me, I guess. Like, what can I kind of look at a lot of stuff, games in this case, but a lot of stuff in general as like, what can I get out of this personally? not in like, not in like, how can I use this to benefit myself, but like, how can I grow as a person in whatever way? Like, I'll just like, I have this habit of, have I talked about this on the podcast before? I feel like I have. But I have this habit of just like starting things, games or shows or something like that, and then like once I hit a certain point, I'll just drop it and I'll have like no desire to go back to it, because I feel like I've like sucked all the marrow out of it. I've gotten everything that I needed, and now I can just move on to the next thing. I don't know. That's how I look at stuff. So like for me, that's like an enjoyable part of learning things. Is like, what new thing can I get out of this? Even if it's just a single thing. Even if it's just like, oh, this character design is cool, or this mechanic is a neat idea, or something like that. It's something that I like. I like that experience. So it was like really cool to see. It's very rare to see so many people at a beginner level learning a genre, especially one that I know quite a bit about. Let me scooch this. My chair. My chair always gets stuck on the rug. I mean, the rug always like bunches up right where the wheels are. Yeah, I don't think I have too much else to say about it. But it was neat. It was interesting. And I guess it did some like positive and negative things. I think like people, there was at least one clip from this Noka fellow where he said that like it was sort of a double-edged sword, because he goes something like, if you play fighting game, or it's just Street Fighter 5. He's like, if you play Street Fighter 5, you're pro at this game. Like, you have to be like, you're like a god gamer. Like, you have to be so good to be good at this game. It's so hard. And like, for me, that was like, maybe I am a god gamer. Yeah, I'm not a pro, but I play the game. Maybe I am a god gamer. But it's also like, for like a beginner or something, that's a very, I think a lot of people get turned off by that. There's like a stigma that fighting games are just like an inherently harder genre than other competitive games. And I don't believe that. I don't think that's entirely accurate, because I've played other competitive genres. I never got to like my personal example. I've played, let's see, I played shooters, not too many competitive ones, mainly stuff like TF2. I also played Paladins for quite a bit. And I played shooters, I played MOBAs, I played card games. So MOBAs, I tried League, and then I tried out Dota. I played card games, I played Hearthstone, and I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And obviously I played a bunch of fighting games. So, like, I feel like I have a pretty decent range of different sorts of games. And what I have, like, experience with. And I genuinely don't feel like fighting games are inherently more difficult. I think that what do you call it? Like, the skill budget is different. So, like, for instance, I would say that in general, fighting games have a higher execution barrier than, like, MOBAs. There is an execution barrier? I don't know. Barrier somewhat. But, like, maybe it would be more accurate to say a higher execution ceiling. Actually, that would be very accurate. Fighting games have an insane execution ceiling. So, like, the skills required... Fighting games have, like, you could probably break it down into, like, okay, you have 10 points to spend, and you have a couple different categories of difficulty, different types of skills. Where would you like to spend your points? And fighting games spend those points differently than MOBAs spend their points. and card games spend their points. With card games, it's like they dump all their points into like decision making. MOBAs, they dump like a lot of it into decision making, but a little bit into execution, and a little bit into like game knowledge and stuff like that. Card games are like game knowledge. They're like it's like 5 points into game knowledge, 5 points into decision making. MOBAs are maybe like, I don't know how you would do it, like maybe like 3 points into execution, 4 points into 3 points into execution, 3 points into 2 points into execution. I'm trying to be like consistent with it. 2 points into execution, 4 points into decision making, 4 points into knowledge. It's something like that. Fighting games, it's like, I feel like there's a, I don't know. I'd be hard pressed actually to figure out how you would do that. But basically, like, maybe 10 is too low of a number to like work with. But like, yeah, you get what I mean. So like, it definitely asks different things of you. There's decision making involved. There is execution involved. There's knowledge involved. It also depends, depending on the game. Like Tekken is a very knowledge heavy game because like you need to know some frame data. If you play Guilty Gear, honestly, you don't really need to know that much frame data, if any at all. That also like Street Fighter, like even like Mortal Kombat. To play an intermediate level, you really don't need to know very much frame data, if any. Tekken, like, you do. So, like, that's a different story. So it depends on the game that you're looking at. What the fuck was I saying? Yeah, it asks different things of you. And if you're not... It's also... Like, pardon me. One thing that you hear all the time is, well, in a fighting game, there's no one to blame but yourself. And I'm like, yeah. And I think about, like, okay, you think about card games. In like, Hearthstone, you blame the RNG, right? You always blame the RNG, which is kind of warranted, because that game was a little too RNG heavy for me. Even in, like, Yu-Gi-Oh!, you just kind of blame, like, balance. You're just like, the fucking Konami. I can't speak. I played I played a Masterpiece deck. I can't fucking talk. I was so annoyed. I was so upset. I was so bummed when they limited Masterpiece to like 1. I was like, fuck, I got to play a different deck now? I like that deck so much. Anyway. Yeah, so like in fighting games, there's some RNG in some situations, but it's very rare. It's one of the least RNG dependent games, like genres. You tend to... I would say that it's a genre that's better... In my opinion, the trade-off of not having a team to blame. And there's, like, truth to that. There's, like... It's an entirely different topic, honestly. It's like its whole topic unto itself. I mean, like, there's 100 different things you could blame in fighting games. Like, if people don't want to take responsibility, I mean, like, Low Tier God is a walking counterpoint to that idea. Like, that dude calls people bad for being good at the game. That's, like, the level of cognitive dissonance that dude is on. This dude did a 10-hit combo. This dude's doing strings. I love that clip. He's mad because the guy knows combos. Like, he's got nothing. People will always find excuses to explain why they're bad at something. It's never going to be their fault. Teammates are just a convenient one, and they're one that's also not entirely wrong. There's, like, more basis in it. Sometimes, like, yeah, you do just get... You play League and just get matched up with someone who just fucking tanks the entire game. And you barely have to do anything to win. So, like... or sorry, you can barely do anything to win. So like that happens, but like, people are gonna find excuses no matter what. I don't think the excuse that you don't have a team is as strong. It's definitely a genre where you have to take more responsibility for your losses, but if you're at the, I don't even think that's how most people look at games, right? Like, I feel like the number of people who actually just come up with excuses for everything is not as high as people make it out to be. I think, like, there's like a lot, fighting games are very like opaque. One problem is like, number one, I always say the biggest problem is accessibility, and by that I mean price. I talked about this last time. Number one is price. Number two is a lot of skills are very opaque, and they're very like not clear. Like, you don't understand the difference between high-low blocking, like I just talked about. That stuff is like confusing. But like, I don't know. I don't know. There's like so many things that you could do. I genuinely do not believe, like, understanding that, having the understanding of the genre that I have, I do not believe that it's actually that much more difficult to get into, or to learn. Learning, it's not an inherently more difficult genre than like MOBAs or shooters. I think a lot of people who have trouble with them are people who grew up not playing them, and so like they just they haven't cleared the hurdle. So like when I played TF2, I feel like I've told this story before. When I played TF2, so like my mom, for instance, my mom hated, she didn't want us playing anything with violence in it. So I could not play any shooters growing up. I had Smash Brothers, and that was it. That was like the only competitive game I had before I like got my laptop in like the 7th grade, and I started playing League because it was free. So like I went my entire life before I was in high school never having played a shooter a single time. And so like when I started playing TF2, like when I was in high school, I was straight garbage at it. Like I was terrible. And then for some reason, like 100 hours in, I remember specifically 100 hours in, I just started like landing shots. It was so weird. I just started like landing hits and headshotting people. And then the game just kind of got way easier to understand. Like overall, it was like this weird, it was just a click moment. It was just, I cleared the hurdle. So for me, the hurdle took 100 hours to clear. Maybe not everyone else, but like that's just an experience you have. And when I think back, it's like I can't even really put myself in my own shoes of what it was like to play the game, because I didn't even know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. You don't even, so like people who have only played shooters their whole life, they don't even know what they didn't know when they first started. And it just kind of came naturally over time, and there was like a click moment, and then they were just okay at it, and then they improved from there. And without going through that experience, it's like, yeah, any genre is going to be hard. Like, fuck, you've seen people play, Souls games for the first time, they get their shit kicked in. Is Dark Souls 2 difficult for casual players? It's like, no, it's just like you have to have reasons. You have reasons to buy it. The game has to be satisfying on a basic moment-to-moment level. It needs to be good. It needs to have enough content to warrant the price, and it needs marketing. That's how you get a game to make money. Like, the reason League is so fucking popular is, number one, it's free. Number two, it runs on anything. Number three... Wait, did I say 3? Number 2, it runs on anything. Number 3, the moment-to-moment gameplay is extremely satisfying because the game is very snappy in the way that it controls. The visuals are very clear and easily readable. It doesn't put too much pressure on you immediately, so you don't have to you're not put in like high pressure situations, so you can kind of learn the game at a easier, slower pace. The sound design is immaculate, and doing anything feels good. Like, it feels amazing to just like hit shit and like get gold and spend gold and level up your skills and use your skills. That's a combination of like sound design and like visuals, like particle effects and all that. Did I already say moving around is very snappy? Because it is. It feels good. You feel like you have like control. Even at a basic level, you feel like you have control over your character, which is something that takes a while in fighting games because the movement's a little different. And then the marketing was good because even though they were like an indie company, they what else? They had that. Well, they've done this with all their competitive games. They basically like put out free betas, but you needed a key. You needed a key to get into the beta, but anyone who was in the beta could like send the keys. You could like share a key for free to your friends. You could send like, I think, as many as you wanted. So you could get like as many people. It was literally like a word of mouth marketing campaign of just like, hey, here's a free game. It's kind of cool. You can come into the beta with me. So there's like this exclusive thing to it. And now, like, you know, they just straight up have like marketing and like streamers that they can work with who have like big audiences. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's why I feel like on a very basic level, that's why that game is successful. There's other things like going from being very weak to very strong in the course of about 40 minutes is very satisfying. It lets you kind of, there's a lot of different ways that you can like fulfill a gameplay fantasy, if that, like you see a character and you're like, that's a cool looking character, and you see the thing they do, you're like, that's a cool thing that they do, and then in the span of about 40 minutes you can go from like a little baby to now I'm doing that character's thing, assuming like you do okay at least. There's also more opportunity to just kind of like get carried. Yeah, I don't know. That's my very quick breakdown of why League I think is successful. Probably other reasons I could single out, but yeah. Hey, speaking of going from a little baby to a big boy in the span of about 30 minutes, Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors. This game has been freaking everywhere, and for good reason. It's very good. So if you don't know what Vampire Survivors is, it is a game. It's on Steam. It's like $3. It's straight up just $3. It reminds me of like a really good like Flash game. Like a really good Flash game that you'd play back in the day. Or maybe like maybe like a good mobile, like a really good old mobile game. So the basic idea of Vampire Survivors is that it is ripping off a bunch of Castlevania aesthetics, but in a completely different type of game. So you are a character. There's a bunch of different playable characters, and then you're just in like a level, which is basically like a field. It's like a top-down perspective with cute little pixel graphics. You're in just like a big level, and then enemies spawn in from just outside the screen, and they come towards you. Almost every enemy does basically the same thing. They just walk towards you, and you have a weapon, and you need to kill them. And then you kill them, and they drop little gems, and the gems give you experience. And when you get enough experience, you level up. And when you level up, you get a choice of 3 items. So you can either get a new item, or you can upgrade your existing item. So there's like... so basically, like, most of it's kind of split into like two categories. There's like the weapons, and then there's like the passive items. So weapons are all things. Well, they're weapons, and they kill the enemies, and they do the thing. All the weapons are like they work automatically. So like the basic starting character is just like a guy with a whip. He's not Simon Belmont, and so the whip just like does a little every like second or every like 2 seconds or something like that. And then you upgrade the whip, and at rank 2 you get an extra hit of the whip, and it hits behind you. So one in front, one in the back. So you get like you're getting horizontal coverage. And then you level it up, and then it starts doing more damage, and it comes out faster, and then you get like, I don't even know if it's part of the upgrade path, but you can get like 4 total whip cracks, like whip swings. And then all the weapons are kind of like that. There's like there's like axes, because it's it's Castlevania, and the axes like every few seconds they like you like throw one up above you, and then it falls down off the screen, so it's like a vertical coverage. And then you like level it up, and you get more axes, and they come out faster, and they do more damage, and everything kind of works like that. And then there's a bunch of passive items that increase your various stats, like health regeneration, max health, damage dealt, all that stuff. But here's the little twist. Here's a little McTwist. Each of the weapons has an evolution. So once you get to max level, you can with a weapon, you can evolve it into a really, really strong version of it. However, in order to evolve it, you need a specific passive item. So like to upgrade to evolve the whip into, it's called the Bloody Tear, because they're really not being subtle with it. You need what's called it's called like Hollow Heart, which is a passive item that just increases your max health. So you need at least one in order to evolve the weapon. And then like every so often, and like an elite enemy will spawn, and then it'll drop a chest. And if you have the chest will normally just give you like a regular item, but if you have one of your weapon, if you fulfill the requirements to evolve a weapon, it will always be the evolution. It's like the only way to get the evolutions. And the goal is basically just to survive for 30 minutes, which is a lot harder than it sounds, at least at first. I'm sure there's people who just, destroy this game. But it's very simple, but it's so engaging and easily like understandable once you get over like just like the little like quirks of the way the game works. And there's a bunch of little secrets and stuff. It's packed with all that kind of thing, and there's a ton of stuff to unlock. Like there's basically just like a ridiculous amount of content. There's like fucking at least a dozen different playable characters who all have different starting weapons, and some of those weapons are like unique to them, and you can't get them from like leveling up. Like one character's just a panda that throws cherry bombs, and they like bounce between enemies, or it bounces off of an enemy, and then it will like explode. I think if it goes long enough. And that's just a weapon that only the panda can have. It's like okay, cool. There's like a bunch of different levels that get increasingly more difficult. I don't know how else to describe this game other than that, like, it's really, really fun. The main like enjoyable part of it is kind of like what I just mentioned when I was talking about League, is that like when you get like a bunch of like little levels on your weapons and you like start evolving them, you get so strong. Like you get so strong. Like you are just like a walking cyclone of death. And even though like every enemy is basically fought in the same way, which is you just deal damage to them until they die, and you try not to have them touch you, going from being like weak and like having all your weapons be really slow to like you're walking around and you're like a machine gun with like a there's like what did I have? I had this build that was like, oh, it was like the magic wand, which like shoots out magic bolts, and when you evolve that, it just constantly shoots them out. So I'm like a machine gun turret. And then there's like Bibles that like revolve around you, and then you can upgrade them so that they're always rotating and they do a bunch of damage. And then there's like like a lightning ring, which will just randomly strike enemies, and then you can evolve that into so that it'll like strike, and then it'll leave and then like a second later it'll do like a second strike in an AoE in that same location. And it's badass. It's cool. And there's like a fire wand, and you evolve that. And so instead of throwing out fireballs, it shoots out like big meteors. And like the axe, it turns into a bunch of scythes that like spin out and hit a bunch of enemies in a row. It's just so fucking cool. Like you feel so powerful because you're just like walking, and there's just giant, like once you get like near the end, like 15, like even like halfway through, bunch of enemies start spawning in, and there's just like hordes and hordes and hordes of enemies, and you're just like walking through them, and like you gotta be careful not to die and just like not do something stupid, which I did earlier today. I had like an entire set of evolved weapons. I was killing it, and then I got cocky and I walked into a big groove, and then I died in 1 second, and I was like, okay. I literally smacked my forehead. It's like, how could I be so... pride comes before the fall, I guess. Yeah, it's great. I don't know how else to describe it. It's a great little game. It's like... There's no... It's just a single... It's a one-time purchase of $3, which is so great, right? It's like... Who doesn't have $3? And it's a game that you can play while you're listening to a podcast or you're waiting for something. You can pause it at any time. There's like no online junk. There's no microtransactions. There's no DLC. The game updates fairly frequently, just for free. And it's just fun. It's just fun to like go in, do a run, and see how far you can get and what like crazy cool build you can get. They're always adding like new characters and new items and new like upgrades. There's still like a couple passive items that don't have any like corresponding weapon to like evolve. There's like a couple that don't do anything yet. So like, yeah, that stuff is probably coming, and there's going to be even more. There's going to be new characters with like new weapons, new stages. It's so much fun. It's such like a pure game. It's such like a pure, nice game that you could spend like a lot of time on. I mean, I've had it for only a few days, and mind you, I've also been like working a ton. I was like just like straight multiple days of just like 10-hour work days. Maybe not 10 hours, like 7 to 10 hours a day. And I still have like 18 hours in the game. Part of that is I think I left it on for an hour or two, but so maybe it's a little skewed. Let's say I have like 15 hours. Yeah. Go play it. Survivors. Vampire Survivors. It's a great little game to play in the background, even play actively. I think that is there a mobile version of this game? It feels like it would work so well for mobile. Poncle is the developer. They have one game. This is the one game from December of last year. Wow. Really curious. Is there like a Vampire Survivors mobile? Because it would work so well. Mobile alternative. Okay, it doesn't look like there's a... What is this? Is this official? Comment joindre sur téléphone? I don't know why. Why is this page in French, but it's in English? Why is this... There's like an image in... The text is in French, but then like the actual article is in English. Oh, it's only on PC. It's totally a game that would work so well on mobile. It's on Steam Deck, so there's that. But yeah, because it's literally, the controls are literally just moving and selecting. You could play this game with like a D-pad and one button. And there's like, you can control with like the mouse by like clicking and then moving. You like click and drag and you'll move in that direction. I think it's like that. You can also play with like a WASD layout or arrow keys. There's no control customization. It's literally just like whichever one of those you want to choose. You could have your hands on both sides of the keyboard doing that. And it'll work just the same. But yeah, it would work perfect on mobile because it's literally just like walking around. You would just you know, it would be so easy to just implement, like, I don't know, implement, but it would be such an easy translation of the gameplay to just have you like tap to walk in a direction, like tap and hold to walk in a direction, and then just, you know, tap to select shit when it comes up when you level up. Like, that's it. Yeah, do I have anything else I really want to talk about besides the fact that you should go play Vampire Survivor? Oh, have I done today's Wordle? I've been getting really into Wordle. Let's see. I haven't. Let's do the Wordle together, guys. Does anyone not know what Wordle is? I feel like a lot of people... Okay, I'll explain it real quick before I jump into it. So Wordle is a game that's on the New York Times website. No ads, at least... Well, I can't tell. I have ad blocker on. But I'm assuming no ads. You can do it on mobile too. And basically the idea is that there's a 5-letter word, and you have 6 guesses to guess what word it is. So you'll put in a word, and then you hit enter, and it tells you which letters are not in the word, which of those letters are not in the word, which letters are in the word, but are in, like, you put them in the wrong spot, and then which letters are in the word, and they're in the right spot. So, like, if it's yellow, it's like, okay, this is I just have it in the wrong place, but there is like an E in it or something like that. And if it's green, it's like, okay, there is like an L. The first letter is an L or something like that. So, yeah, I've been getting really into it. Let me just, okay. First guess is crane. I don't know if that's like the most meta thing to do, but like I've heard that like the first word is a good first word because you're covering, like, you get C-R-A-N-E, which are like common vowels, or you get A and E, which are like really common vowels, and like C-R-N, which are also pretty common consonants. Okay, second, so the middle letter is A, and there's an R in there. The next one that I like to do is always fight. Oh, okay. Because it covers F-I-G-H-T. So the first letter is an F. There's also an I in it. Let me try. And then my third word is usually slops. Okay, so it's F-L-A. Oh, it's flare. Okay. Sweet. Great. We just did the Wordle together, guys. It's really fun. It's just like a game of deduction, essentially. It helps if you have like a decent English vocabulary, but most of the words are like pretty common, like not too crazy. There have been some real, like, one of them was like awful, not like awful A-W-F-U-L, like awful O-F-F-A-L, which I didn't even know. It's It's like the inedible parts of like a butcher, like meat, like deli meats, like cartilage and that shit. That's awful. OFFAL. I was like, what the fuck? Other than that, I'm like 30-0 on Wordles because I went back and I did the archives. I did archive. Someone has like a list of archived Wordles. So yeah, I mean, it's just like a little game of deduction. You're like, okay, there's an R and an A. There's an F and an I. There's an L. Okay, well the first 3 letters are FLA because those ones were lit up green in those spots. And there's an I, R, and an A, so the only English word, there's like flurry isn't a word, so there's gotta be flare. Yeah! I've been sending Kat so many screenshots of the Wordles that I've completed, and like she doesn't care. Like she does not care. She's like, great job, babe. Good job. Well, I think I'm gonna be gonna wrap up now. Thank you if you've been listening this far. Thank you so much. New stuff coming on the main channel in like 2 weeks. Should be near the end of the month. I have Patreon. I have another channel, which is what that Patreon is for. You're probably if you listen to that you already know at the main channel. If you have a question, leave them in the comments below, and I will definitely get to them next time. But please leave them in the form of a question, because I don't just want to read your thoughts out loud. Yep. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. Goodbye.